The eighth song, Young Man and Sea, starts like this. And essentially, this is what repeats throughout the song. So, this is another instance of that technique that we've seen before. It makes the song rather straightforward, but in this instance, there are little differences. So, let's listen to the riff again and pay attention to. The first time, it ends like this. And then the second time, ends like this. It's a little bit different. Even though it is essentially the same riff with the same chord progression that keeps repeating throughout the song, there are always these little variations sprinkled here and there. And of course, in GEM's signature style, she constantly develops and evolves the arrangement with different instruments and different textures. So in the end, even though it is essentially the same thing getting repeated over and over, you are still able to find something new each time, and the song doesn't feel boring. In terms of key scale, things get even more interesting. So let's talk about the root note first. There are a few different candidates. You have the start of the riff, so that's distinctly a G. You also have the start of the melody. That would be a B flat. And you also have the last note of the melody. That's a D. So things are presented a little bit more ambiguously here. It's not as obvious as Ice Age, where things are super neat and they always start and end at the root note. But if you look at the chords underneath, both the riff and the melody start with a G minor chord. So the riff with the chord played out sounds like this. And the melody goes like. And so, because the song seems to be rooted on this G minor chord, I would say the song is based on the G minor scale. But then, if you look at how the melody goes, even it doesn't follow the G minor scale exactly. There are modifications too. The first three bars of the melody, up to this point, uses the natural E and the sharp F. These two notes are not part of the normal G minor scale. The G minor scale would normally have a flat E and a natural F. So here we have a case where the 6th and 7th note of the scale are raised by a half step. But then when you get to the last part of the melody, it goes like this. Notice here we are using the flat E and the natural F. So in this part, we're no longer modifying the scale. We're just using the regular G minor scale. And this can be seen throughout the song. It switches between the modified scale with flat 6 and 7 and the regular G minor scale all the time. Doing this will give the music more complexity, more subtlety, so it's not all happy-go-lucky like Ice Age. And that makes sense because this is meant to be a more cinematic track. You want the song to have more depth so the audience can be immersed. You want the audience to put more deep thought into what's happening here. One more thing to notice is this is another song that never settles back to the root note. We talked about this technique previously for Solitude, and just to demonstrate it as a counterexample, imagine if the song had been. Ending squarely on the G, that would sound pretty final, right? Like, yes, we're definitely done here. But of course, the actual song never does that. You can go through the entire song and you'll see that it never settles back on the G, and at no point can you cut the song in the middle and feel like the song can just end there. Part of the reason for doing this is because this track is meant to be more like the kind of atmospheric background music that you find in a movie. For that purpose, it's common not to have very distinct start and end points, and that's to avoid accidentally grabbing your attention. because in a movie, they want you to focus on the picture, what's happening on screen. But if the music had a very distinct start and end point, it would actually cause you to notice the music more. Like, oh, look, the music just ended, and that distracts you away from the movie. On top of that, the second reason leads to my interpretation of the MV, which is about the girl essentially suffering from depression. So here, the music being in a loop that keeps going and doesn't settle down reflects the feeling that she's trapped in this endless cycle of suffering. I imagine someone with depression might feel exactly like that, like things are always going to be this way and the suffering will never stop. Plus, with the way the music intensifies over the course of the song, you can feel her mental state deteriorating as time goes on. On the other hand, unlike in Solitude, where the song just starts fading out and cuts off at the end, this song actually does have a distinct ending. So it's true that it doesn't end on the root note, so it doesn't feel fully settled, but this is still a real ending. This is very much like the first song, Gloria, which ended in a similar way. Once again, this is like the musical equivalent of fading to black and saying to be continued. Indeed, here we see she puts on the VR goggles and enters the game world for the first time, and that point is the starting point where you get the vast majority of this album's story. So, just like the song Gloria, where both the music and the MV don't have a final resolution, like you see the door opening, which gives Gloria hope and opens up the rest of Gloria's story arc, you can understand the ending of this song in a very similar way. Here again, both the music and the MV don't have a final resolution, where instead of a literal door opening, you have more of a figurative door that opens for this girl through the use of these VR goggles, which gives her a chance to live a new life in a new world. And this is what opens up her story arc for this album. This song, which has been about depression and suffering, ending at this point, also alludes to the fact that this gift, being given the chance to experience life in the virtual world, is the thing that finally broke her out of the cycle of depression. And that's represented in the music by the song finally breaking its loop and coming to an end.